My name is Mitch, and welcome to the channel. So I made this avatar to have in front of all my videos and possibly do some animations down the line. I was originally planning on giving him normal eyes, but then I kind of switched and went with these weird Spider-Man eyes instead. Let me know if they're too scary looking, I'll try to tone down a bit. So this video was requested by a subscriber, Carla Michelle. She had a lot of cool things to say in the comments down below of a past video, and she requested a video on anatomy. Now, I'm not the greatest at anatomy. I still use the Clip Studio models to draw all my proportions. But I do know a couple tips and tricks I can show with the model that might help you and that you might not know about. And before we get started, I normally don't ask to sub in my videos because I always kind of found it pushy. And all these YouTubers lately have been showing how many people are actually subbed that view their videos. And I'm always like, wow, that's really low. So I decided to check mine. Yeah, so I guess I got to start asking to sub. If you like the videos, I'm going to be posting more videos like this. I also take video requests, but please consider subscribing. It definitely motivates me, and I'll definitely try to pump out more videos the more subs we get. All right, on to the video. All right, so this first tip I'm going to call tip 0 because if you're pretty familiar with Clip Studio Pro, you probably already know how to do this. I'm just going to show real quickly how you actually import the Clip Studio model. For anyone who hasn't really used this program that much. If you already know how to do it, yeah, feel free to skip on to tip 1, and then you might be able to learn something new. And I do want to point out that I am using a Mac operating system. All this is going to be pretty much the same thing, any operating system you're using Clip Studio, just so keep that in mind. All right, and to find the 3D model, you're going to go over here to this right-hand corner, at least on the default setup of Clip Studio anyway. Click that. It's right there, but you might show up on all material, so you have to go to 3D, and then you're going to have to probably open that up, and then select body type, and that's the 3D model right there. So if we click and drag it onto our canvas, there we go. So basically to move around with the camera right here, it's running a little sluggish because I'm on my bad computer right now. It'll kind of vary depending on how powerful your computer is. This will move the camera again, zoom in and out. I usually don't like to mess with this too much unless I have to. If you're going to move the character in your scene, you just click on it and then you'll have these options down here. That's probably the best way. And then you can move it into different poses. It's kind of fun to mess around with this. There's also ones that come with it automatically. So if you go to pose right here, you can pretty much just drag and drop it onto here, and it'll switch into that pose. There's also a lot you can download from the Clip Studio Paint. So if I were to search and open, not Clip Studio Paint, just the Clip Studio program. If I were to open that real quick, if you go to Clip Studio Assets, you can pretty much type in whatever pose you might want in here, and you can download them and then get them all set in that. Yeah, there's a couple body shapes. There's a weird pose. I think I saw. Yeah, you just download it and it would show up in Clip Studio. So that's pretty much the basics of it. To also change the hands real quick, you got to make sure you're in the 3D object mode like here. If you scroll down, we're going to go, you can change the outline width, which is kind of fun to mess around with. But pretty much we just got to select the hand we want, and then we got to open up pose, and then you can pretty much just mess around with it, and then do the same thing with the other hand. Like that, and then they're all linked. This will make it so you can kind of lock it in place and then move the other hands, and they have quick presets. But yeah, it's a really fun thing to mess around with, and it definitely helps you when you're first starting out and you don't really know the correct body proportions and how to draw anatomy really well. It definitely improves your art very quickly. All right, so on to tip 1. So this model is really great. It does have issues, and I'm going to kind of go through what I find to work better. The first one is if you're trying to make your art a little bit more realistic, there's a couple things you're going to have to change to get the better results. And even if you're trying to go for a more anime style, there's different stuff you got to do. The first big one that I always notice is it looks fine when you're looking at the head on. The biggest issues I have overall is really just the head. It's just weirdly shaped, I think. It's not too bad when you're looking at it head on like this, but when you get a profile shot, it might not look bad, but once you start drawing over top of it, you might realize that it's kind of wide for some reason. It might just be how my drawing style. I just kind of like the heads to be a little skinnier. But usually what I do is I kind of draw over top of it. And then once I have it completed, I kind of use the lasso tool and shrink it down. There's another way you can do it. If you go and edit the actual body proportions right down here. This might be a little different on the Windows version. But basically, yeah, it's just adjust body type. You can actually change the head. So if you click on the head, yeah, you can actually change it to be like a little thinner like that. Yeah, and you kind of mess around with that to kind of see what you want. But this feature is really great too. So if you select the whole thing over here, you can pretty much change all the height, and that's in centimeters. So if you want to know the actual feet, you might have to mess around with that. And yeah, it's good to know because some characters might have bigger heads for their body type. Usually children, like if you're trying to draw a child, they'll usually have a giant head compared to their body because that's just how they are. Maybe not crazy like that, but you kind of get the gist. So pretty much that's just, you got to mess around with that. Another realistic thing you're gonna have to add is when you're looking at the profile, at least, you really don't see his lips or anything like that. His chin's kind of weak too, which is really weird because this is the version 2 of the Clip Studio model. They actually had a version 1, which I thought did a really good job of showing the lips from a profile view. So we'll go ahead and grab that one since we saw it. So we'll go ahead and delete this real quick. Yep. We'll throw in the version 1 model. And there's some things I don't like about it. The proportions in the shoulders are kind of weird. I think the hands were not as good either. But I think I like the head a lot better. And once we zoom in here and look at a profile side, yeah, we'll see. You can definitely see the lips, and that looks more in tune to like how they're actually drawn. I don't like the nose that much. But yeah, so I really wish we could get kind of the best of both of them. So you kind of just have to choose what you prefer to use when you're making a drawing. All right, so now tip number 2 is more cartoony, I would say. So the first tip, we were trying to make it more realistic for your drawings. But the thing is, when you're drawing comics or anime style, anything like that, you can definitely make realistic looking characters, but when you're first starting out, you might want to make your characters look a little bit more toony. And even in the more realistic comics, they still tend to have weird proportions, and you're going to have to change that. The big one that I typically use is I first off make them a lot taller than like a normal human being. I just kind of like my characters looking a little lengthy. So again, you can go into this setting and just try to make them tall. Yeah, 200 centimeters almost. Yeah, they're giant, but I mean, I don't think they're actually that tall in the universe or in the world, I guess, that I create. I just kind of look like that aesthetic, and it kind of varies person to person. And then usually if you're going to make them that tall, I like to make their neck really tall as well. Try not to go overboard, as some anime do. But it definitely does add a little bit of like, kind of like, I don't know, something to the characters. Yeah, just definitely don't go overboard with it, but just kind of make a style. And it definitely helps your drawings to make them a little bit more unique. Another one that a lot of people do is make the arms a little bit bigger, make the hands maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, and then if we go over here in our 3D settings, we can do change body shape. I could have sworn there was a way you could do it in here, but I couldn't find it. You might be able to do it in the Windows version, actually. So if you go over here, you can kind of change how if they're muscular or fat or petite. Yeah, it definitely adds a lot more you can do with your characters, so they're not all just the same kind of basic looking, because it's, everyone has different body shapes, so it definitely adds a lot to your comics. It's a pretty cool feature. And then you can also, once you have like a character you want, so maybe you had a character like this that you want to have, and you don't want to just have to make them every single time, you can actually save them as materials, which I would highly recommend, especially if you're making a comic. So basically you just go down here, save as a body type, or pose. I think this is actually the pose. So yeah, so if you make a pose too, so say something like that. Yeah, there's two different ones. So this is like pose saver, I believe. Yeah, register full body. So basically, you could like save it as a pose and then drag and drop it. But we want to save it the actual character. Yep, save body shape as material. So we want that one. So we'll just say guy one. And if we put it in our 3D models, maybe our body types like that, it should show up right there. So then if we delete it, and drag and drop it, there he is again. Alright, so those tips were a little bit more basic. If you've been messing around with Clip Studio before, you might have already used that. So this is something a little bit have to do with art and how you kind of have to manipulate it again to make it a little bit more arty. And I know that's probably not the correct term for arty, but you'll see what I mean here. And mostly what it has to do with is perspective. We'll go ahead and just find a pose here. Alright, so I couldn't really find a pose I wanted, so I made this really quick pose. So basically it's like a character saying stop or something like that, or halting. And you could start drawing it like this and it would look okay. But with comics, a lot of times perspective is really like shifted to add kind of like impact, especially in action scenes. But for a scene like this, I mean, if you were looking at a person, it would kind of look like that depending on where you're standing. But you got to think about where this hand is in relation to maybe like the viewer. So what we're going to basically do is make the hand a lot bigger. And that might not make sense, like, proportion wise, but just by making it bigger, it's going to make it stand out more, make it a lot cooler. So basically we just have it selected. I don't think you actually have to select the hand, but we need the manga perspective. So we'll go ahead and click that, and yeah, it already made it way bigger. So you can kind of like mess around with this, and basically what it does, it just makes the hand bigger or smaller. Maybe we don't want it too big. I mean, you could have it be really big and be kind of have like an ominous hand reaching out. That might be a little bit too big. So let's kind of get like that, something like that. And yeah, the hand's like half of the picture now, or the panel, maybe if you're doing it for a comic. So that just gives it more focus on the actual hand instead of not. So if we turn it off, it's kind of just like a regular sized hand. But yeah, I would really recommend messing with this. And then also when you do it like this, if he has like something on his hand, maybe like a crazy eye or something, I don't know, like dead or eye, he's got like a mouth or whatever. You could also make, when you're drawing it, maybe make him out of focus, and then really focus on the hand even more. So that's a really cool thing to mess around with, especially for poses like that. I'm going to try to looking into not just poses like that, but like, other action-oriented poses and how you can mess around with perspective like that to make some really cool looking shots. All right, and now we're on to tip 4. This is kind of a weird tip that I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend, but this is something I could see working really well in the future. So right now Clip Studio Pro has kind of like this, I think it's in beta. I hope it's in beta. It's not like a fully fledged feature or anything like that. It's called Pose Scanner, and basically you upload a picture and it tries to translate it into this 3D model. And I'll show you how it works real quick. It does not work great. I will just say that right now. I've tested probably about 10 pictures, so I really haven't messed around with it too much. But if it's something you might want to look into yourself, I would highly recommend it. It's really fun. Sometimes the results are really goofy looking. It's kind of funny that way. It can kind of give you inspiration. And sometimes they work pretty well. Most of the times they don't, though. So I'll go ahead and show you. So down here, there's a little button right here. It says Pose Scanner. Yep. Technology Preview. So that means that I think that's what they call like their stuff in like alpha or beta. And basically what this is saying is you have to be connected to the internet, because basically it connects to their servers to kind of look at the image and then kind of see the human and try to map it out. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and then you got selected image. So I selected these like Vegeta poses because they're very obvious poses like that. So go ahead and click it. It takes a little minute. It might be faster. And it kind of read it. It didn't really get the legs or where the head was positioned out. But I mean, it kind of understood it. So we'll go ahead and Control Z on that. We'll try another one here. I did realize that it doesn't work great with like anime characters or comic book characters, so I did another one of Spider-Man. And yeah, I mean, you just got to think it's going to be hard to like expect with like Spider-Man and Vegeta. So I think how the AI works is it kind of recognizes like a human face. So it's going to definitely have a hard time with like, comic book characters and anime characters because that's not what the AI is kind of trained to do. But we'll try this one anyway. Let's see. I mean, I think that's kind of the pose actually. It's a little weird, but it kind of understood actually. So that's pretty good. So we'll get rid of that one. And so I found if you find a picture of like a real human being, that tends to work a little bit better. So I found one of this guy. So this is kind of like pretty easy pose you could do yourself actually. But we'll see if it works anyway. Yeah, and if you can hear the hissing in the background of my computer, working a little bit harder than it should be. So yeah, it got the arms kind of, but I forgot the legs. So you just have to kind of do that yourself here. It's a really fun thing to mess around with, I found. And you could try it with pictures of yourself. That might work better. But who knows? But yeah, it's definitely something you can check out and possibly, I think in the future, I don't know how well this technology is advancing. I think it's kind of with like AI facial recognition, basically. Eventually, I mean, you could pretty much create your whole comic once if you add your VRoid character and you do the pose. I mean, you would pretty much have to do nothing in terms of like actually art. So I mean, I think in the future you'll be able to make comics very, very easily that look pretty decent. Actually, excuse me. Yes, this pose is a little weird. Alright, so that's all the tips I have for this video. Let me know if you ran into any issues or you have any cool tips and tricks of your own in the comments, so I can check them out or maybe make another video about them all. But thanks for watching. I plan to make more videos in the future, especially I'm getting a lot more views and a couple subs here and there. So it's definitely motivating me to make more videos. And I kind of want to see what people want in videos. I'm definitely going to be making more art tutorials, but I think I'm going to try to branch out, maybe do like some animations as well, because I kind of want to do that. So let me know what you guys think. And then again, if you could sub, that would be greatly appreciated. It helps me out, definitely motivates me to make more videos, and I plan to be making more content like this in the future. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.